Alrighty. And actually, I just want to make my mic. Yes. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Strange, and here we talk about the paranormal, pop culture, and unsolved. So make sure that you leave 5 stars and leave a comment in the comment section if you can. And yeah, let's get on with this. All right. So today I have a special guest with me today. She is fearless. She is a badass, and she is one of my co-hosts for this up and coming show, Mysteries Decoded Spirit Squad. Sarah, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am Sara Gray, also known as Sarah. You may know me from Mysteries Decoded. I have been a paranormal investigator for over a decade, and I've just been really passionate about the paranormal, doing a lot of investigations, and really getting out there.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so cool. And like you taught me a lot too. Like, I mean, it was really cool being able to work with you and like work with like other investigators because I never have before. And like I've took it more from the spiritual side, but like seeing you guys in
Mhm.
action, I'm like, I'm inspired. I'm so
Oh,
inspired.
that's sweet. That's
um,
cool.
so yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Conjuring house and, a couple of movie references from there, but more specifically, Sarah's experience at the Conjuring house. She did a episode with Mysteries Decoded. It was like the first episode of this latest
Mhm.
season, and I think that was a really good like episode altogether. I'm like, what? And you guys tried a couple new different things too, from what I saw. I'm like, whoa, okay, I can get behind that. um, so like before we get started into the history of the Conjuring house and everything, prior to you even like going to the Conjuring house, what was your first like introduction to it? Like how did you find out about it?
Let's see. I probably found out about the Conjuring house like everybody else did from the movies. I had heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren previously, so as soon as I found out that they were actually at the Conjuring house, I was like, "Whoa, this is extremely interesting. I'm really interested now." So that's how I found out about it, and ever since then, I mean, the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah, like that was definitely my first introduction was the movies. And even like hearing a couple of the castmates talk about their interest, like I think Joey King had a weird experience. I don't know if you knew that, but like I
No.
I did a TikTok and it went viral because I thought people knew about it, but apparently she was on like one of these like she was on a radio show and she was talking about how she was experiencing like weird bruising after filming.
Whoa.
Yeah, it got to a point where she was rushed to the hospital and like she was scared that she was gonna die basically. um
Whoa.
yeah, yeah, so like I think this is like a really good thing to point out as we continue
Yeah.
talking about the history, because I did not know. She actually said that that was a wild like filming experience for her because she also got this mysterious like blood illness, and she got very sickly. And then when they stopped filming, it gets weirder. When they stopped filming and she was not on the site anymore, she got better. Like it just miraculously she just
Wow.
got better. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, what the like you
Yeah.
can't make this up. And even watching like
Hmm.
this episode of Mysteries Decoded, I was taken back because Jen Marshall, she's like the main one of the main hosts of the show, and she's like very like she doesn't react to things, and I saw like the
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's
cool.
a very stoic person.
Yes.
So to see her react like that was so out of character for her. It was really out of character.
Yeah. Had you met her prior, by the way?
No, that was my first time meeting her.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was like, I wonder like if there's any past experiences, like if you knew of her getting scared at other locations, but I think she said that was the one place she was really like uncomfortable at times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
okay, cool. So let's talk about the history then, since people are probably like, well, what the heck? What's going
Yeah.
on here? Okay, and you can feel free to also add in anything too as I talk about it.
Hmm.
But basically, the Conjuring House, in 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perrin, along with their 5 children, moved into the house located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. And the house is actually a lot older, though. It's like one of the oldest houses, right? Like
Yeah.
1736.
It is extremely, extremely old house. There was other families that lived there prior to that too.
Yes. And I didn't know that. I thought that it was like, maybe like a couple of people had moved in there, but then like looking into it and you guys covered it on the episode, it's one of the oldest houses in that area or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
what? That's wild. Okay. So we have a
It
little
started off
history.
as like a small section, and then they kept adding more to the building as time went on.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, yeah, like the house has gone through changes from what I understood. And
Hmm.
when the family moved in, though, they experienced like a strange phenomenon of like a couple of them being thrown off the bed, things moving, being touched by ghosts, like pinching and poking, hearing weird
Yeah.
noises. And then, this all led to, of course, the spirit of the witch.
Hmm.
And you mentioned that you saw the movie and everything. When you went there and you learned about like a couple of the things that had happened, did you ever think like, wow, this is the real life story is a lot scarier than the actual
Yeah.
Conjuring film?
Yes, because in movies they always spice things up, but like for them to actually really go through those experiences in real life and to have to then every night go back home to the same home and
Yeah.
go to bed in the same room where that happened to you like the previous night, that's terrifying.
Yes. Yeah, like I'm kind of like, how did you guys sleep at night? I would have been, and I get it, right? I mean, we'll touch base into this as well, but like the family, a lot of people question, like, why are you still living here and putting yourself through that? Um, but yeah, apparently like one of the neighbors even told the parents, like I don't know, allegedly, that they said for the sake of your family, leave the lights on at night. And that would set like the theme going into this house, allegedly.
Oh, yeah.
um so shortly after this, as like I mentioned, they had haunting experiences, and the family mentioned that there was a couple situations that would happen, but at first they were like, okay, just a weird coincidence, but then as like time went on, they're like, no, there's something way more sinister going on, which then leads into like the actual like the mom and the spirit of the witch.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, though, the children thought that the spirits or the entities in the house were good. And they're just kind of being more nurturing, apparently. I don't know. This is just
Hmm.
from one source. And they would claim being tucked in at night, being kissed by a spirit.
Hmm.
Cynthia and Andrea mentioned that they could recall the smell of roses or flowers. Um, which is interesting because then it was also said that at 5:15 they would smell rotting corpses. You
Ooh, yeah.
or rotting flesh or something like that.
Hmm.
So I guess my other thing is you said, I remember in the episode you experienced something at around 5, didn't you? Like,
Yeah. I heard several things throughout the night. At first, I heard something like a ball or an object fall down and then bounce a few times. Then I heard a door slamming. Now, this door wasn't my door, it was like outside of my door. And then throughout the entire night, I was hearing this continuous banging sound that was really creepy. It was really freaking me out, and I didn't know what it was.
oh my God. And you were like by yourself too, right? Like for the most part, you were by yourself.
Yeah. When at first the camera crew left, there were a few people left with me, but then after they left, then I was really by myself.
Oh my God. Yeah. See, I don't know if I could do that. See, like that's what I'm saying. Like everyone, she is like fearless. Oh my goodness. I could use some of that. Yeah, so it's interesting though, right? Because there were reports of the family experiencing things at 5, and then you had your own personal experiences of like actual things
Mhm.
moving.
Mhm.
Um, and so then apparently though, I guess like what I was very like thrown off is that they went from saying like there is nice spirits to like all of a sudden evil dark forces, and apparently, like, I think was it Andrea said that her sister Cindy mentioned that there were 7 dead soldiers buried on the wall. But like, and
Mhm.
I thought was really good about the episode is that you guys went above and beyond. It actually went to the library. I saw the scene where like Jen went to the library and she started seeing like all these like deaths and stuff. And like the
Yeah.
town itself has had like tragedy, the history of
Yeah.
tragedy. And like there's a trigger warning, people. I'm just gonna say unalive, but like unalive too, like a lot of people were unaliving themselves in very tragic
Oh,
ways. I don't know if you
yeah.
remember that, but
Yeah.
I was just like, there was like, unaliving by drowning or hanging, and I'm just like, oh my
Yeah.
God, that's so tragic. um I just like, it like gave me knots in my stomach thinking about how like
Yeah.
she went to the library and was seeing like a history of things.
Mhm.
And I guess like there wasn't anything though at the library indicating like any soldiers that might have lived there, but there was a part where you guys there was another experiment that you guys did, and there was like maybe leading that potentially there could have been soldiers or something like that, right?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, because we ended up getting a machine out there to go under the ground and check that out and see with sonar waves if they were able to pick up an anomaly. And they did pick up like an empty space under the ground where it's possible that at some point there could have been bodies buried there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like that I think was really good to know because like it this goes beyond just like, oh, she just said it. And I guess like in a way that situation plus like this little girl at that time was like, hey, like I was told there's 7 dead soldiers
Mhm.
here. It's almost like that's a weird coincidence. Like I almost think that gives me chills because it's like there's no way. How could you know that? You know, like how could
Yeah,
you just know that out of nowhere? You clearly
it's
picked
so
up something.
specific.
Yeah, you know, like
Yeah.
where would she get that? And it's also like,
Mm.
you know, what was it like the early 70s? Like, yeah, there's TV and
Mhm.
everything, but I could tell that, like, you know, I mean, I'm a millennial and yeah, we're all like, we're in that generation where we would go outside. There wasn't like
Mhm.
the internet the way it is now. There wasn't media accessibility as it is now. And so
Mhm.
it's like very specific for something like that. I wouldn't chalk it up to just a wild imagination at that point. That's just
No,
my take. Yeah, and I feel like you feel the same way too. It's like,
definitely. It's not
um,
something that a child would come up with. Like a child might come up with there's fairies, there's 7 fairies in the backyard, or there's 7 elves, but like 7 dead soldiers, like 7 of them, that's very specific.
mhm, mhm. And especially when they were like, "Hey, you know," they first are like, "These spirits are so nice, you know, we're being tucked in," to like late at night, she barges into her sister's room and she's like crying, like, "Hey, there's like, I was told there's bodies in these walls and da 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 da." I'm like, "Oh, that's very disturbing."
Yeah.
Um, like that's very dark for a child just to come up with,
Yeah.
despite imagination. Um, so I guess now we touch base on like, I mean, do you recall any of them talking about how it started off nice and then it just escalated really fast?
I know for sure that they were saying that there's a plethora of different types of energy there. Some of it is very positive, some of it's neutral, and some of it unfortunately is pretty evil.
I think, and it's interesting because it starts off from being nice to evil. And I don't know about
Mhm.
you. So when I've spoken to people who are, you know, who are part of this community of believing in the paranormal, investigating, being psychic mediums, I've actually heard a few different times where sometimes spirits can turn like, you know, more aggressive when they feel like their space is being disrespected. Could it be that for some reason this spirit went from like, okay, these people are welcomed, but now, you know, they're disrespecting my face, like my space some way somehow, you know, like so I think that like part of me feels like I wonder if perhaps maybe something like something very like sacred to any of those spirits might have been like a form of disrespect and so they escalated it. I don't know, but that's
That's
just
very possible.
like a theory of
I
mine.
do know. Yeah. Not only is that very possible, but I also know of a dynamic that was going on with the spirit and the mother of the family because it appears that there may have been a dispute over like who was really the matriarch. Even though the
Mhm.
mother was alive and was taking care of the children, the spirit felt like she was the matriarch and she was in charge. Or to some degree, this was a dynamic that was kind of unfolding in the house. And this is how things were kind of being perceived at the time. So that could be another thing that's that caused the situation to end up escalating to that point.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too, because like, so for context, I guess we can now segue into that. So like apparently the spirit of the witch was basically having a thing against Carolyn Perrin, right? Um and I guess she went on to say that she told the Providence Journal that a woman in gray appeared by her bedside and told her to get out or else death. And so this is like, you know, segueing into like the spirit of the witch, which was Bashima Tear, right? Is that how you say it? Or uh,
Bathsheba, I believe.
yeah, Bathsheba Tear. And so like the eldest daughter, Andrea said that the witch spirit was like, you know, she, like you said, she believed that she was like the main, like, you know, the person of the household, the mistress of the household, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so of course, seeing, you're right, it could be that, it could be that she was watching, Carolyn be a mother to her kids and, move into this space. Um, and I guess
Mhm.
like they the other thing too, speaking of that, they also mentioned that mysteriously the kitchen would be like clean, or like someone would pass the broom or something like that. Which again, I keep
Yeah.
getting,
Mhm.
yeah, like motherly vibes from the get-go. And then it gets to a point where like Carolyn, the mom, was possessed by said witch spirit. And I took it a step further and I was like, so what is the backstory of this? Like, why do they keep calling her a witch? Well, like, it's interesting, right? Because if we try to think of it as like a non-paranormal thing, in her lifetime, there was no evidence that this woman was a witch. She was just like a married person with 4 kids, and 3 of them died young. So again, this is like early in the 19th century. Like as we mentioned, the house was really old. And I think that's another thing of a need of like a family, is what I'm gathering from this.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, it's really sad, right? Like it's almost like, okay, I
Yeah.
can see why you would feel that way. I don't know. What are your thoughts on
Mhm.
that? Like, do you think that could be it? Or like, was she a witch? I don't know. Like,
That makes perfect sense. And now that you say it, I've never even thought of it like that, but that makes perfect sense that this was the spirit's motive and motivation behind acting in this way, is because she was the matriarch of her family, but she lost 3 of her children. So that left 3 really huge gaps in her heart and in her life. So maybe in death, she's still trying to fill these gaps by thinking that she's the matriarch of the
mhm.
parent family.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I'm even getting like, I keep getting like gushes of like cold spurs. I don't know if you feel anything. I feel parts
Yeah.
like talking. Um, but
You're probably
yeah.
gonna have weird stuff happen to you tonight, because every time I do an interview about the Conjuring house, the paranormal activity in my house increases that night. So, and sometimes even like the day before, it's like the more people talk about it, especially if they're like mentioning my name and the Conjuring house together, the more, I don't know, it like breathes life into it. So don't be surprised if you see something weird happen around your house
Yeah,
tonight.
I'm like getting cold gushes of air in here. I also have my haunted dog behind me, Earl. He's very
Oh,
sweet, so
cool.
maybe he's probably like, it's okay.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, okay, so yeah, I think now that we spin it in this narrative, it gives more like a humanistic and less like she was just evil to be evil and this evil witch, that people like to feed into. I think there was more to this tragedy, if that makes sense. Um,
Definitely.
and of course, like apparently she passed away due to a stroke in 1885, and she was buried next to her husband and the 3 children. So, and then like let's see. So I do recall though that there was a part in the episode of Mysteries Decoded where like I think Andrea was like, and it's interesting that she was so freaking like just like her memory was so vivid. I just was
Yeah.
like, but you know what though? Part of me, I don't know about you, but like when people are so detailed in their memories, it makes me believe them even more at times, because it's like, how can you
Yeah.
remember that and be so like, I feel your emotions, especially when people are just like very
Yeah.
like sad and distraught over something, they're so detailed.
Mhm.
I'm more inclined to believe that. That's just me. I'm like, okay, you clearly
Yeah.
were traumatized by
And
this.
I mean, you should have been there because, yeah, because when the cameras were off, she sometimes would continue her story and tell us even more. And there was no difference between the camera being on or off. Her stories were from the heart, like literally, and it was very emotional.
Yeah, I could tell like there's parts where like you or Jen were looking at her, and I could see the sympathy because of how she like was telling the story. Even me, I was just like, oh, okay, she's definitely reliving her memories right now. Um,
Yeah.
was there something like any of her memories that you felt were like, oh man, they should have kept that in the episode?
I don't remember if they mentioned this part, but there is something she said that stood out to me the most out of all the experiences that she had, was the instance in which one of her family members saw themselves in like 1800s clothing come through like a portal or something in the house. There was this weird time distortion happening within the home that was it was just completely inexplicable. And they would see basically in front of their eyes, they would see situations that were like from a different time era with different like era clothing and just completely out of this time zone, like out of this world. And that stuck with me. Now I know in the show they didn't really go that far deep into it because that's a whole nother question. Like now we're talking about time travel or time distortions. Like we were not prepared for that type of question. We would have to come back and like do a whole nother episode only to ask about like time travel or just whatever type of time distortion that was. So
Yeah.
I think they kind of didn't really focus too much on that because we just didn't have enough time, funnily enough, to even get into that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people, I don't know if they realize it, but when you are filming something, there's so much that you can go down the rabbit hole with.
Yeah.
Um, and that's interesting that you guys started tapping into time travel because I kind of got the vibe of that when it was around the scene where you were with, I think, Andrea's husband, and they were like, hey, can you record that? And like as you guys were getting ready to like go back to like the starting of the scene, you heard knocking with the door latch or something like that. And you went there and you're like, hello, can you do that again? And I don't know if they did it again, but when I watched that, I was like, imagine if someone was in a different parallel, different like,
Mhm.
vortex or something else, and they're trying to let you know they're stuck here. I know I've
Yeah.
experienced that with spirits, but that
Mhm.
moment, for some reason, I thought of like different parallel or like a type of time travel, which is wild that you're telling
Whoa.
me this. Yes, I am not even joking
That's cool.
because it's kind of like like okay, Stranger Things, where like they
Mhm.
hear things, or was it like in the first season when
Mhm.
Will, was it Will, but like when a little
Mhm.
they're in the under the upside down, and he was like trying to get their attention, and like the mom Joyce was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, he's here, I know he's here, and then like but they could not see each other. I kept thinking, for some reason the knocking made
Mhm.
me think of that. Like sometimes I think when spirits knock or we hear knocking, I'm like, imagine if it is that. Imagine if that is the upside
That
down.
yeah. That's true though, and that's basically how it is. I believe that.
Yeah, like why not? Like, I mean, I guess we don't know, but like why not though? Why can't it be? I don't know. I know we got down the rabbit hole with that, but
Oh, here we go.
yeah, I was like, I think that's why I got super into Stranger Things too, which I know is so different than this, but like, I'm like, what if there is an upside down? I don't know. Okay, so we talked about what the family is experiencing, and of course, you're probably now people are wondering, like, well, what about Ed and Lorraine? Are you gonna get to that? Yeah, of course we are. So, eventually, like, because the mom was like experiencing all this like harshness allegedly from the spirit, Ed and Lorraine came to investigate the house, and immediately, like, it was said that Lorraine was able to pick up the energy of the house, and she felt this very dark presence. And they ended up cleansing the house, but then this was like followed up with a seance, which apparently is thought to have made things much, much worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm. And I don't think people realize this before we get into the rest of the story, because I know people really like the Conjuring series, or because of the films. There is like, I don't think people understand this. Like, Ed and Lorraine were very controversial in their time too. Like, whether even with
Mhm.
people that believed in the paranormal and spirituality, a lot of people didn't like their approach. And I just want to say that because, like, while people are like, oh no, maybe it was too strong of a force. Well, no, but it could also have been the fact that maybe Ed and Lorraine might have made the spirit mad with their beliefs or their practices. That does happen, and I just want people to know that like sometimes a spirit,
Yeah.
just because you are a medium, just because you are someone that can do house cleansings, a spirit may not like your spiritual
Mhm.
practice. Fun fact.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so I think that's another thing that I think about. But and I'm just taking it from that narrative. There's different narratives for sure, right? I mean, there's so much more we
Mhm.
can touch base on with this. I don't want to just make it one way, but that's what came to mind when I thought of that portion of the story. And apparently, like Andrea, and this is the part where I was just like actually seeing her being interviewed on the show. I was like, oh my God. She was like, she witnessed the seance, correct? In the basement.
Yes. Mhm.
Do you want to
Because she
talk?
was like hiding behind a door. She was like, her and her sisters were like peeking around like a door to see the seance. They weren't technically allowed to be in there, but they did see it.
Yeah. And like I'm thinking to myself, like a child, like seeing that. I know for me, I was a scaredy cat as a kid. They were
Yeah.
already like experiencing so many scary things, I feel like. And then to see that and see their mom in that way, I can't imagine.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yes, because there was a part where she was like, my mom was speaking like unknown languages and she levitated, the table levitated. She said that the table was very heavy and it levitated.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, was there anything else? Do you remember what else she said about that? I mean, you can feel free to add more details of what she said, but
Yeah. I don't think there was anything more. So she was speaking in tongues. I remember that her father punched Ed because of, like her father wasn't really a fan of what was going on. Her father didn't want this to be going down. And so when the situation escalated to the point to where now the wife is now getting hurt, getting thrown across the room, the father punched Ed in the face and gave him a nosebleed.
that I did not actually read about. So I'm glad you had that.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
He just punched him. I mean, well, because I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I can never, I kind of like, I can watch it. I have to be in a certain mood, but like I cannot just watch flat out possession, like possessed films, even if it's like make believe Hollywood movies. It just makes me feel so uncomfortable. And because I think someone pointed this out to me on a live, they're like, well, because I was talking about it on a live, they're like, would you watch this movie? And I'm like, I don't know. What's it about? And they're like, possessions. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I literally get the heebie jeebies with it. And even like seeing just like actual photographs of the victim being possessed, it makes me feel so uncomfortable.
Those
Like,
are
just,
the worst.
mhm.
Oh yeah.
Because like my theory is too, like if that is something that's unworldly and malevolent, like I'm probably seeing the spirit of that through the eyes, because like the windows of your
Mhm.
soul is through your eyes. And so part of me is
Yeah.
like, ugh, this is why I feel uncomfortable, because I think I'm actually seeing it. And
Yes. Yeah.
it makes me want to throw up sometimes. Like it just makes me uncomfortable. um and so I can only imagine with like the actual seance taking place, the mom like
God.
screaming, and because it's like even though it's not like in a way it's like the invasion of someone's free will and body, like it goes beyond. I mean, I will
Mhm.
say, like, I don't mean another trigger warning, but it's kind of like people, people that have been victims of like physical like assaults and stuff of that nature. um that's already triggering for me, but like like I think in general when someone just takes your body, no matter whether it's that or this, it just there's something about it that makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but it's like I cannot see this. um Maybe I'm just too
No, I
sensitive.
completely agree. I completely agree. Like it does make me uncomfortable. Seeing it in movies it's not a good vibe. When I see it in movies, it's kind of like I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, I see what's going on, but there comes a point where I will decide that I have to turn it off because I can watch it for a certain amount of time before I feel like this is now absorbing into my subconscious, or like this is now creating a vibe in the room and within me that I do not wish to for this to continue. I don't want this to evolve into something. I don't want this to now act as a portal for me to now be open to something. Not saying that that is automatically going to happen if you watch a scary movie, but if you are subscribing to something happening to you, to the idea of something happening to you, and you're continuing to watch it and sitting inside of that energy, that is not good. That's not a good look. That's not going to bode well. And as far as looking at pictures of actual possessed people, oh hell no. I mean, sometimes I can't help myself but look because I want to see like what the aftermath looks like, but do not stare at those pictures for too long and don't go
Yes.
and get like hypnotized by those pictures. And like I know that there's an allure of the darkness. I know that that's there, but just beware of where you're putting your energy, basically.
There's something that I really love that you said when you went to the Conjuring house. You said, I think, because I think they asked you like how you felt the day after you spent the night by yourself, and you said, well, I think overall, like I didn't have like anything super scary or anything like like where I felt unsafe, but I think because I went into this house with like love intention, like love and light, and I'm like, see, that's the way to
Absolutely.
go. And I wonder how many people actually go to the space with that intention, you know?
Though that's the thing is I believe almost everybody that shows up at that location is expecting a demon to immediately pop out and scratch them on the neck. Like everybody's expecting that. So, yeah, no wonder you go in there and you experience a bunch of negative stuff because you're kind of asking for it. Like by expecting it, you're now manifesting it because you're
Mhm.
expecting it so hard. So I
Yeah.
believe that's a huge part of it is what people bring into that house. And for me, knowing that I'm going to stay at this house completely by myself, I'm not going to come in here like Zach Bagans and just start insulting things left and right because I have to be here alone for the whole night by myself. Like, I would rather talk to the little children spirits, to any neutral entities that might want to talk to me, like shadow spirits, whatever. But I'm not going to go and purposefully put myself in a situation. I mean, who's gonna unpossess me if I get possessed by myself? Nobody will even see it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like really bad stuff can happen if you decide to allow yourself to get possessed. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Villisca, Iowa axe murder house, but about what 5 to 6, maybe 7 years ago, a paranormal investigator went into this home alone to investigate alone and ended up being found with several stab wounds to his own chest that he did to himself. Okay, so it's like
Oh,
being
heck
alone
no.
in these haunted locations is actually really dangerous.
Yeah. No, that exactly. It's sometimes because I've heard of people, two people that I'm mutuals with online that are in the paranormal space. One of them, she told me that she had a weird experience as a little girl. She spent the night at one of her friend's house, and she woke, I guess like she blacked out, I guess. Like she remembers going to sleep, but apparently she had blacked out, and she woke up like talking in a very deep like voice that was
No.
not herself. And her friends, because it was a sleepover, they were like, oh my God, like wake up, wake up, wake up. And like they could not. And she was acting out all crazy. And then she just like stopped and went back to bed. And the next day they're like, don't you remember that? She's like, no. And like the house was haunted. So it's like there's something about leaving like yourself vulnerable even when you sleep. So like yeah, being by
Mm-hmm.
these spaces by yourself, yeah, it's scary. The other person, well, I think she made a video on it and I saw it, and I guess she says she blacked out when they were doing an investigation, and
Oh my
she was like going in and out, like blacking out, and like they rushed her outside, and like they made her touch like a rock or something to ground her, like, but they took her out immediately. Her friend was like, you're blacking out, we need to take you right now, we need to take you right now. And I guess like that was like her almost being possessed, but her friend luckily like caught on to it, grabbed her, and was like trying
God.
to like protect her for whatever was
Yeah.
happening, because you sometimes don't
Mhm.
have people like that if you're by yourself, you know what I mean? Like what if
Yeah.
you black out, you black out, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
um
So the director said that it seemed a little weird that as a paranormal investigator, I'm coming in and I'm not immediately like addressing and taunting the demons, but I'm I'm just saying it's not that weird because I have to spend the night and I would rather talk to like the children's spirits because it's really dangerous to be alone in these types of locations. And I
yeah.
mean, I do want to talk to the demons up to a certain point, but at the point where I'm completely alone in the home and I have to survive at that point, I'm not open to speaking to the demons, if you get what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I've told people on the podcast side at least that, like, I have gone to locations. I'm more like, I consider myself more like a psychic medium. I feel energy out. I don't like, and I mean now in recent times I have gone to places and I have brought equipment and I have investigated, but I feel like I try to like lean in towards my spiritual side still, because that's what I know best. Um, and even from the beginning of things, when I was learning about this stuff, going, just communicating with people's loved ones, I'm always like, I don't want to taunt. Like, if I'm speaking to a loved one, right, and they're a spirit, why would I be like, Mary, talk to me right now, because like your granddaughter's right here paying me for you to talk to me? Like, the same thing. Like, you don't go to a place, you know what I mean? Like, if that's gross behavior, what makes you think I'd go to an actual like location just because like someone's loved one may not be there presently? Like, what makes you think I'm going to get better results by doing that elsewhere without you know what I mean? It's like they're basically like us without the meat suit. So why would you taunt them? I just don't think. I don't know what you're expecting. It's like you're going to a bar to start a fight almost, is what I think. Like that's how I perceive that energy.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. But the thing is like that night I would have been going to a bar to start a fight completely alone with no backup for like 8 hours. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like if we want to get a team together and we all go taunt the demons, I guess yeah, sure. But if you guys want to leave me there by myself, then I will do whatever I need to do to survive the night alone at the Conjuring house. Like I'm just gonna go into this in the way that is the
Yeah.
most like safe way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can't imagine, you know what I mean? It's like, why would you go? And I don't even, have you heard of anyone? Like, I don't know, maybe someone can let me know, but like, have you heard of anyone by themselves, like going in there, like without a team? Because we just mentioned Zach Baggins. Has he ever gone by himself I don't think he
No.
has. I don't think
Oh no,
so.
no, no, no. No,
Yeah.
never. No, definitely not the Conjuring house by himself, that's for sure. But
What, I mean, I doubt he would ever listen to this, but like if he did, like challenge accepted. um,
yeah.
we'll see. Hope not. Hope you don't do that to yourself. I don't wish anything like that on other people. Um, okay, so I guess we can segue into something. We mentioned the seance scene, right? Well, and we talked a little bit about the Conjuring house. So apparently while the Conjuring was being filmed, the family was actually invited to go, and apparently the family ended up not going, and I guess something came up or whatever, but like I think it was the mom that was like, no, I don't want to go. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, that makes complete sense. Like, this is literally like reliving some very tragic, very traumatizing like situations. I'm not if it was a mom, might have been someone else, but I think it was a mom. In general, though, like, why would you go back to a place that like literally scared you, you know, and you left in the 80s? They left the house in 1980,
Exactly.
from what I remember. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I can imagine them wanting to go somewhere. And then also the family, though, they believe that they actually really believed in the curse, though, of the Conjuring. I don't know if you heard, did she mention that at all? Like further more
No,
into.
they haven't explained that part exactly.
Okay, so I this like, and I'm just gonna say allegedly because like if she didn't say it to you, I'm just gonna say allegedly because this is where I found
Mhm.
other people saying about it. But apparently the family believed in the witch's curse, like it was still really real because like wherever they went, it seemed to follow them. Like when they did an interview on it, equipment would fall, weird things would happen, and apparently like
Okay.
yeah, and so they even said that whoever lives there is very much susceptible to these dark forces and potentially like a type of curse. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was back like 2 years ago. The house went up for
Mhm.
sale, and I think someone
Mhm.
bought it for maybe less than a year and sold it again, from what I understood. I could be wrong on that, but I do know for sure,
Oh.
the house was up for sale a couple years ago, and
Mhm.
I think yeah, sometimes there has been reports of people buying the house and maybe not having it for that long. Um, I don't know
Yeah.
if it's I don't know what it is. Could be we could chalk it up to the
I think
supernatural. What's
yeah,
up?
definitely. So I think before the Heinzens finally took over the home, I think that's when people were like buying it and then giving it up. People could not like actually just live in that home. But the Heinzens, because they are themselves paranormal investigators, they already knew what they were dealing with. So they were able to successfully carry on the business in the home for a while. And then because they have like two homes in two different states, they have decided to sell it again. So they have now sold it to, I believe it's a lady who also does paranormal tours. So it's still available for tours as far as I know. But I do believe that, okay, so you were calling it a curse, and some people might call it a curse. What I'm thinking is that effect of things still moving around, anybody living in the home experiences something, and then the parent family continuing to have experiences when they talk about it. I think that's more of like an attachment kind of thing versus like a curse, because a curse would be more like something specific, like a specific, you know what I mean? Like, how would you
Yes.
define a curse?
I think like a curse is something that is not ritualistic.
Mhm.
Because I think that like people can like a curse is something that you could do on yourself unintentionally, actually. Like I've heard of that. Like I've heard of people that like, especially if like you think you're gonna manifest something bad, like you can unintentionally put a curse. So it's not like a ritual, it's not something that you can go home and like have like this whole table and you're like, I'm putting a curse on this person. You can do it to yourself. So it's not
Yeah.
in that way from what I understood,
Mm-hmm.
versus like hexing someone, you actually have to
Right.
make a spell or do some type of ritual, I guess, for it.
Mm-hmm.
um and I guess like a curse is just setting, like manifesting just like your fear on yourself without realizing it.
Yeah. And you'd be
um
surprised how often that happens to people.
yes. Yes. I cannot explain to you, like I like when I found that out and I finally got it in my head, the difference between like hexing and curses. I'm like, you know what, I'm almost positive I've done that, because there's been moments in life where I've been a negative Nancy. I'm not gonna, I'm not better than that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been negative Nancy, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all this bad stuff is happening to me, oh my god. And then I victimize
Mm-hmm.
myself. I'm like, I think I might have like continued
Yeah.
adding that
Yeah.
narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I recently got laid off my job and it's been a couple of weeks now. And okay, so I mentioned this I think in the last podcast I did. So the day that I got laid off, I decided to go to this tree where apparently like this family discovered gold, and it started the gold rush in California, and it's like 30 minutes from
Oh.
where I was at. And I
Mm-hmm.
decided to visit it on the day I got laid off. And I was like, you know what? This is
Mm-hmm.
sad. This sucks, but I'm gonna keep my head high and like just understand that I need it. It's a new journey for me. And it gets even
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So I get to my car and I open my phone. I'm on Instagram and it's advertising like a local full moon ritual in the local area. And like I never like I'm on Instagram, but I use it mostly for messaging. I don't check my feed,
Mm-hmm.
sadly. Like I just don't as much anymore because it's just I'm overly
Real
stimulated.
time.
Yeah, I'm overly
Yeah.
stimulated with the social media nowadays, even though like that's
Mm-hmm.
what I do. um
Mm-hmm.
and I saw that and it caught my attention. I'm like, and I told my husband, like, we should come back. We should do the full moon thing. We came back and I wear the evil eye bracelet. And because I believe in that stuff, it's like a cultural thing for me too, growing up.
Yeah.
And so we get to the shop. We do the guy's talking about how it's the harvest moon, rebirth, death, letting go of all this baggage. And I'm like, wow, great, because I just
Mhm.
got laid off. I need to let go of this baggage. So like we're
Yeah.
meditating, I'm inhaling, exhaling. And then, and I kid you not, when we're done with meditation, I open my eyes, the freaking bracelet just ripped off. Okay. I turn my phone
Oh.
on. Yes, I turn my phone on, and that's the message of like us getting the message that like we're finally airing the special Halloween
No
special the
way.
same day, all the same day.
No way.
Yeah, all the same.
Whoa.
And so that's what I'm saying. Sometimes like feel sadness, but like I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to a place where like there's just something monumental, and then it happened. I don't know, but that's just
Yeah.
my little
That's
theory on
amazing.
things.
The fact that your bracelet just like came off of your wrist, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I had to replace it, and again, it was just I saw it snap off, and I'm like, what? I turn my phone on, and like there's 20 messages. I'm like, oh my god, what is this? And then like I open it, and it's like, hey, we finally got a date for the Halloween Mysteries Decoded Spirit Squad, and I'm like, what? So gotta keep your head high. You gotta keep your, because you can unintentionally curse yourself.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to fear people into it. Like, I'm not saying, oh, you can't experience negativity. You can, but understand that like when that happens, you are not the victim. Like this is your time to persevere and gain courage and gain a
Mhm.
strength that you may not have had before.
Yeah.
Little
I think
piece.
it's important when stuff like that happens to you. Like it's okay to allow yourself for a few seconds to feel what you're feeling, because if something hits you and it hurts you, of course it hurts, but what really matters is that you don't stay locked into those feelings, and that
Yes.
you find a route out of that emotion, and try to move on and step away from that.
Yes, exactly. So going back to like the Conjuring and all of that jazz, are you like, would you ever go back to the Conjuring like would house again, or
I would love to go back.
yeah,
I know it sounds crazy, but I would love to go back. I wish that I could go back with you and Brittany. That would be like the
yes.
best way to go back, because then it would be a team, and then we can like instigate the demons together. You know what I mean? Whatever. Probably not you, but at least
Yes,
if I have, backup, like that would help.
of
But I
course.
also really I like the home too. Like I do like it. Like there's something about that home. I really liked being in the living room with the fireplace, and there's something about the downstairs that's kind of alluring, to be honest with you. The upstairs sucks. There's super negative energy, but the downstairs has this like homey feeling that makes me just want to like get a book and hang out and read, all the way up until the demons come and start throwing me across the room.
Oh
But
yeah,
you know what I mean?
throwing books and everything like that. Scene where the book kept falling. That was wild, by the way.
Yeah,
That they had
yeah,
like
that was
actual
cool.
footage. Like so like for context, I know people like have been keeping up with the house, but like at the Mysteries Decoded episode, they were actually looking at the footage that the owners at the time had been recording. And I remember you guys were watching it about the book falling off. And then you guys also submitted it to a person to see if it was like a hoax or it was staged, or if there's anything that they would need more information. And some of the stuff actually checked out, like they couldn't find a way that would be
Yeah.
reenacted or
Yep.
so yeah, definitely I should definitely watch it. Yeah. I mean, it's literally on the CW. It's free and you can stream it.
Yeah.
So um so the other question too
So wild.
is what's up? What's up? Oh,
That was so wild how the books just like come off the shelf like that, and to have that verified by somebody who's saying this was not CGI, this was not edited, not modified. I mean, that's awesome. That's the type of stuff that people like me look for, is like scientific evidence and proof of the paranormal. So I was really
yeah.
happy to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Because you guys, again, like that episode was so good because like you guys literally went above and beyond the library, submitting the footage, checking like the actual land, like the plot of land for things. And I think some shows don't. I'm not bashing shows. I'm just saying some shows I don't think have done that much like research, or like they just tell the history, but that's it, and like leave it at that. Where like you guys literally went above and beyond of like, hey, what can we find truth to these maybe
Mm-hmm.
legends or stories that been passed down. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the other question I had too is like I know that we touched base mostly on the spirit of like the female spirit, the mistress of the house. But what about like is there like I know there was like a man that is believed to be like evil or mean. Can you tell us more about that? Because I feel like you had a story even after filming. I don't know if you want to share it, but you told
Oh,
it to me. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, that's where like
Well, there's multiple, huh?
no, sorry, keep going.
Oh, okay. There's multiple presences at the Conjuring house. One of them I do believe is the spirit of a man, and this is the one that I believe has followed me home because I have experienced the specific sound elsewhere that then I have also heard in an EVP that I captured at the Conjuring house. So for me to capture that sound on a recording and match it up to what I then experienced after I left the Conjuring house, that tells me that this is like a direct link. And this entity it's not something that terrifies me because he's not actively hurting me, but his desire is to scare me and cause fear. So he will move stuff around in my house and make these weird sounds and basically provoke fear in me. And the reason why being the reason why I've been followed home, I just want everybody to know that it's 100% my fault, because when I signed my name at the Conjuring house and put my little portal symbol, that was me inviting at the time what I was inviting was positive and neutral entities to come visit me. And yeah, haunt me. I'm a paranormal investigator. Go for it. So that's what I got. That's exactly what I got. I got a grumpy guy who sometimes will come to my apartment or to my hotel room, make pig sounds and move stuff around and make me feel like a tinge, just a little bit of fear, but not enough for me to like run screaming out the room or anything. But that's his intention. Like this entity, this being has fun by making people feel fearful, by
Yeah.
making people feel afraid.
Oh, speaking of my dog just barked and I just jumped right now.
Um,
Of course, right. I was like you said, I'm like yeah, no, I thought that was wild. And like There is a part, guys, I'm not going to give anything away, but like maybe for people that are listening to this before it airs, like there was a part when we were filming, it didn't make it in the episode. I'm not going to give too much away, but there was a part where like it didn't the name on the ovula show up of that said spirit at what point when we were in the Adobe Leona's house? Like I'm pretty
Yeah, so yeah, it was the name. It was actually the name of Edward, who was the father of the family, of the parent family. So his name came up during a spirit box session. So that was super weird because, I mean, me and Ed have kind of a close relationship because when we were on set, we really bonded, and I think about him often. And for his name specifically to come up during our Spirit Squad Spirit Box session, I mean that was crazy because then I verified with the owners of the Adobe if there's anybody there named Ed. Is that a relevant name? Why is this name coming up? And everybody's saying there is nobody here named Ed, Edward at any point in time. This name is not relevant to the Leonis Adobe. So it's like, okay, well, I know what it is relevant about though, the Conjuring house, which tends to follow me around. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Yes. Yeah. And I just and again we couldn't of course we for obvious reasons we could not add that into the show, but I just wanted to add it here because it was like so wild that you were literally telling us about like where you had gone with the crew with the production team and you know people know already like you know you were there you were at the Conjuring house and to see that on equipment like I'm just like I was blown away at that moment. That was a definitely like an
Yeah.
interesting defining moment during filming.
Yeah.
um okay, cool. So I think that wraps up most of what we covered. I loved that you added that last segment though because like it just shows how present these spirits are in that house. Sarah, for sharing that story. I'm going to make sure to add your socials in the description. So keep an eye out so you guys can follow her and check out her stuff. Like she has a lot of good stuff on her page. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in with me and Sarah today. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, remember to give me a review and subscribe if you want to hear more content like this. And we'll see you guys next time. Stay strange.